Her loving wife, a family torn apart, but what led to a deadly shooting right in front of her own parents? What secrets were hiding behind closed doors? You'll hear every shocking detail, but trust me, it's not what it seems at first. What would you do if you found out your spouse was hiding a terrible secret? Could jealousy and betrayal push someone to the edge, or something even darker? Before we get into the chaos, the screaming and the heartbreak, I want you to meet the woman at the center of it all. Not the victim in the headlines, but the human being. Shawntai Atkins wasn't just another name on the news. She was a 34-year-old woman with dreams, a strong spirit, and a deep love for her family. She lived in Daytona Beach, Florida, a quiet part of town, not too loud, not too flashy. Shawntai was known by friends and neighbors as someone who carried herself with calm confidence, not loud, not angry, but warm and respectful. She wasn't the kind of woman who liked drama. She kept things private. She had a tight bond with her parents, especially her mother. Anytime she was upset or needed to think clearly, her mom and dad were her safe space. She would call them when she didn't feel right. She trusted them, and that trust would bring them to her door on the night she lost her life. But Shawntai was also strong and independent. She loved motorcycles, and she didn't let stereotypes stop her. She had a bike of her own, a symbol of freedom and confidence. She had a free spirit, but she also had discipline. People said she worked hard and took care of business quietly. She wasn't out partying or stirring up mess. She had her circle and stayed grounded. And Shawntai wasn't just strong at heart. She was a caregiver by profession. She was a registered nurse, a woman who spent her life helping others, someone who saved lives during the day and went home to protect her children at night. She believed in her marriage. At some point, Shawntai fell in love. She believed in commitment. She thought she was building a future with someone who valued her. She got married to Chantel Atkins, and for a while things looked good from the outside. They weren't rich, but they had a home, some comfort, and what seemed like stability. But as with many toxic relationships, the signs of danger were slow, quiet, and buried deep behind smiles. She wanted peace in her home. She wasn't the type to make noise or blast her personal life on social media. So when things began to shift, when things started to feel unsafe, most people had no idea. Let's pause here for a moment. How many people are silently living with fear behind a front door they once called safe? Shawntai may have been suffering in silence, trying to hold the marriage together, like so many women do. Maybe she blamed herself for his drinking. Maybe she thought he'd change. Maybe she believed loyalty meant staying, even when it hurt. And isn't that the part that hits hardest? She did everything right. She called her parents for help when things got tense. She made plans to leave when she saw the truth. She didn't explode. She prepared. But even then, she had no idea that she was walking straight toward her own ending. She wasn't loud. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't looking for trouble. She was just a woman trying to find peace in a storm. A daughter who leaned on her parents for support. A wife who finally said, "Enough is enough." And a mother of 3 who spent her life caring for others, both in scrubs and at home. And on the day she stood up to leave, her strength cost her everything. But the story doesn't end there, because what her husband did next was something no one could have imagined. October 19th, 2023, the day everything shattered. What began as a seemingly ordinary day for Shawntai Atkins would become the moment that changed and ended her life. That morning, while at home in Daytona Beach, Shawntai stumbled across something she wasn't meant to see. It wasn't a lipstick-stained shirt or a hidden letter like in the movies. It was a message, silently blinking on her husband's Apple Watch. A message from another woman. A name she didn't recognize. Words that sent chills down her spine. The kind of words no wife should ever have to read. Flirtatious, secretive, clear. He was cheating. And it wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was confirmation. If you suddenly discovered your spouse was hiding a secret like this, what would you do? Would you scream? Would you call a friend? Or would you sit there stunned while your world crumbled? For Shawntai, the shock was paralyzing. But she didn't stay quiet. She called her parents, trembling, crying, angry. She told them everything. She said she had discovered the truth about Chantel, and she was done. Done with the lies, done with the betrayal, done pretending. She told them she wanted out of the marriage. She was planning to leave him. Her parents, worried and protective, urged her to come to their house immediately. A safe space, familiar walls, love, support. A place where she and the kids could feel protected. But what happened next, no one could have predicted, not even in their worst nightmares. As the day stretched on, the tension built. Calls were exchanged, messages. What exactly was said between Shawntai and Chantel that afternoon remains unclear. But one thing is certain. Something inside him snapped. While Shawntai was packing up her things, preparing to leave with the kids and never look back, Chantel was already on his way. To confront her, to stop her, to end everything. No one knows the exact moment when love turned to hate, but sometime that evening, Chantel pulled up to her parents' house. Inside, Shawntai was with her parents and the children, maybe still shaken, maybe trying to stay strong for the kids, maybe believing it was over. But outside, a storm was waiting. Chantel had come armed, with a weapon, and with something far darker in his heart. As her parents arrived to help her pack and leave, the tension inside the house was suffocating. Emotions were high. Shawntai was done. She had made up her mind to leave the marriage, and her parents were there to back her up. But Chantel wasn't letting go. Suddenly, as the family moved toward the front door to leave, Chantel grabbed a rifle. In one shocking, irreversible moment, he shot Shawntai in the neck, right in front of her parents. She collapsed instantly. No warning. No time to run. No chance to fight back. Her blood soaked the doorway, a brutal end to a woman who just wanted freedom. Her mother screamed. Her father stood frozen, then instinctively turned to run. But it wasn't over. Chantel raised the rifle again and threatened to shoot her parents next. Can you imagine? The man you once called son-in-law now turning a gun on you after murdering your child? Her father tried to escape, scrambling over a fence in the yard. But in the panic, he broke his leg while landing. An injury that would later require treatment, but one that may have saved his life. Meanwhile, Chantel stood there, his wife dying at his feet, her parents gone. And then, in the silence that followed the screams, he turned the rifle on himself and pulled the trigger. He shot himself, aiming at his chest, but he did not die. When first responders arrived, they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. Shawntai dead on the ground, her husband bleeding beside her but breathing, and chaos echoing through the neighborhood. What makes someone murder the person they once vowed to love and protect? Is it rage, shame, or the toxic belief that if I can't have you, no one can? What do you think was going through his mind at that moment? Guilt, regret, or just fear of prison? And why do so many abusers try to take their own life only after destroying someone else's? This wasn't a moment of madness. It was a decision, fueled by control. Chantel saw his grip slipping. Shawntai was leaving. She had support. She was done. And to a man like him, losing control wasn't an option. When abusers realize their power is gone, they don't just lash out. They destroy. Not out of love, but out of possession. This wasn't just a murder. It was a message, one meant to silence her, punish her, and scar her family forever. If this story is breaking your heart already, imagine what her family is still living through. The least you can do is subscribe, and not for me, but for her, and for every silent victim whose story might never be told if we don't speak up. And if you think this is just another crime story, you haven't seen what's coming next. You need to see what led to the unthinkable. Subscribe now, because the truth doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hides in the quietest victims. To those who won't subscribe, drop a comment and tell us why. Tell us why you'd rather scroll past a woman's life than stand with her memory. We're listening. At the center of this tragedy stands Chantel LaShawn Grant, a man in his mid-30s, now known not for who he was but what he did. But who was he before the bloodshed? Those who knew him described him as charismatic, at times even charming, the kind of man who could smile through a lie. But beneath that surface was a storm waiting to erupt. Chantel had a documented history of alcohol abuse. It got so bad, he was recently placed under the Marchman Act, a Florida law that allows someone to be involuntarily committed for substance abuse treatment when they pose a danger to themselves or others. In other words, this wasn't new. He had spiraled before. His drinking wasn't just a habit, it was a threat, and everyone around him knew it. There were moments when Chantel's behavior crossed every line of reason and safety. One chilling example? He once took Shawntai's motorcycle while drunk. Not only did he risk his own life, but also added stress and fear to an already fragile marriage. That recklessness wasn't a fluke. It was a pattern. And then came the affair. Shawntai discovered he had been cheating, and it became the final straw. But maybe, just maybe, that affair was only the visible tip of a much deeper sickness. Because people don't just snap over one argument. This wasn't about just betrayal. It was about control, addiction, manipulation, and unresolved violence hiding behind closed doors. What happens when addiction meets betrayal? Can someone's worst demons completely take over? Was this truly a crime of passion? Or did he plan to do this the moment he realized she was leaving for good? Experts say the combination of alcohol abuse and narcissistic rage is explosive. When someone like Chantel feels exposed, abandoned, or rejected, their mind twists the pain into punishment. In their world, if they feel humiliated, someone must suffer for it. So did he snap that morning? Or was he already building up to something this violent? Did he look his wife in the eye knowing what he was about to do? And here's what you might not know. The story doesn't end here. There's more to this case, more pain, more questions, and a legal system now left to untangle the wreckage of one man's breakdown and one woman's silenced voice. After Chantel Grant crashed his vehicle just minutes after shooting Shawntai Hall, police officers quickly arrived on the scene. He was injured but alive, with visible blood on his clothes and hands, not just from the crash, but from what he had just done. Officers arrested him at the crash site, less than a mile from the house where he gunned down Shawntai. He was taken into custody and transported to a local hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. A firearm was recovered nearby, believed to be the murder weapon. Once medically cleared, Chantel was booked into the Pinellas County Jail, facing multiple felony charges: first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment. Due to children being present during the shooting, he was held without bond, considered a serious flight risk and danger to the public. His criminal history, struggles with alcohol, and the violence of the crime left no room for leniency. Between July 2023 and June 2025, the case moved through Florida's court system. But it didn't move slowly. Here's what happened in those 2 years. August 2023. Prosecutors announced they would seek the maximum penalty: life in prison without parole. Fall 2023. A series of pre-trial hearings took place, including evidence reviews and witness statements. 2024. Chantel's defense team attempted to argue emotional distress, referencing his history of addiction and relationship issues, but no insanity plea was filed. He refused to take a plea deal, maintaining silence during most of the proceedings. Behind the scenes, Shawntai's family, including her children, continued to grieve and prepare to face him in court. June 2025. The trial begins. The long-awaited trial finally began, and it was over in just 2 days. On day 2, after just 17 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of 2 counts of aggravated assault. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, except for the soft cries from Shawntai's family. Chantel Grant was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. He will die behind bars with no appeals expected to be successful given the overwhelming evidence. Why did the jury move so fast? Was the evidence really that clear-cut? Can justice ever be enough when a mother is taken from her children in front of their eyes? How does the system balance truth, trauma, and time? This wasn't just about guilt. It was about accountability in the face of unbearable trauma. The court didn't waste time, because the evidence was undeniable. Surveillance footage, forensic proof, eyewitnesses, a dying declaration. Sometimes when truth screams loud enough, justice doesn't hesitate. Yet for Shawntai's children, the pain didn't end with a conviction. They saw what no child should see, they heard what no child should hear, and they must now live with a hole that no sentence can fill. Justice may be swift, but healing is slow. Does this punishment fit the crime? What message does it send to society about domestic violence? Shawntai's parents survived, but barely. Her father, Eddie McCree, broke his leg while fleeing the scene. He had jumped from a height in desperation after witnessing something no parent should ever see, his daughter being gunned down right in front of him. Her mother, Catherine, was frozen in shock. They both thought they were going to die next. And in the middle of it all, their 10-year-old grandson, the child of Shantai and Chantel, stood there, traumatized and terrified, witnessing the entire thing. He was the one who called 911, his voice shaking but clear. A child forced to become the first responder to his own mother's murder. The pain is unimaginable. The family now struggles not just with grief, but with survivors' guilt, flashbacks, and the long-term trauma of living through such a calculated act of violence. They attend therapy. They hold on to memories, but some wounds are far too deep for time to heal. "Every morning I wake up and I see her face," her mother said in court. "Then I remember, she's not here. She's gone." How do you begin to heal from watching your daughter die? What kind of strength does it take to go on, for your grandson, for your sanity? What support systems even exist for families shattered by domestic violence? Behind every headline is a family left with silence, broken birthdays, empty chairs, and endless what-ifs. Domestic violence doesn't just end one life, it rips through generations. Before the bullets, before the heartbreak, there were warning signs. Chantel was jealous, controlling, and had a history of alcohol abuse. He had just completed treatment under Florida's Marchman Act, but deep down, his demons were not gone, only dormant. He had a temper. He took risks, like riding Shawntai's motorcycle drunk. She had already kicked him out once, and when he came back, she hid her phone and messages, fearing what he might do if he saw something he didn't like. But guess what? It wasn't her phone that exposed her affair. It was his smartwatch. Technology can uncover secrets, yes, but it can also accelerate destruction. He read her messages. He saw her plans. He made a choice. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about a fragile ego, a volatile mix of addiction, obsession, and rage, and a woman trying to protect herself in silence. She didn't call the police. She didn't tell her parents about the depth of the threat. Maybe because she thought she could handle it, maybe because she was afraid, but it cost her everything. Could this tragedy have been prevented? How many women and men are living with ticking time bombs, right now, behind closed doors? What are the red flags we ignore until it's too late? If your partner becomes controlling, if their moods change suddenly, if they threaten to harm themselves or others, that is not love. That is danger. If they go through your phone, hack your smartwatch, track your movements, that is not care. That is surveillance. That is escalation. Speak up. Tell someone. Get out. Because silence doesn't protect you. It empowers them. Now listen carefully. If you've watched this far and you're not subscribed yet, ask yourself, what's stopping you? This story isn't just content. It's a warning. If you've ever felt unsafe in a relationship, if you've ever ignored the red flags because you hoped they'd change, if you want to protect yourself or someone you love from ending up like Shawntai, then hit subscribe now. Don't wait for the next tragedy to understand why this matters, because the next life this helps save might be someone you love. And if you still refuse to subscribe, then go to the comments and explain why. And let the rest of us know what makes you feel safe ignoring warnings this loud. Shawntai's death isn't just a tragic story. It's a mirror held up to every silent home, every overlooked red flag, every relationship that looks perfect on the outside, but is crumbling behind closed doors. This wasn't just about love gone wrong. It was about control, jealousy, denial, and silence. And Shawntai isn't alone. Thousands of men and women live and die like this every single year, in cities, suburbs, rural towns. It doesn't matter your race, income, age. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate. So what do we do with this story? We listen, we learn, and we look closer at our own relationships and at the lives of people around us. Don't wait for someone to cry for help. Sometimes the people most in danger are the ones who smile the most. There's a world of pain that never makes the headlines. It lives in whispers, in bruises explained away, in texts deleted, in doors locked out of fear, not safety. So as you close this video, take a moment, look beyond the headlines. Ask yourself, would I recognize the signs before it's too late? Would I speak up if someone I love was in Shawntai's place? The truth is often stranger and sadder than fiction. What would you do if you were in Shawntai's shoes before you scroll away? If this story shook you, even just a little? If you felt anger, sadness, or thought, this could be me, or my sister, or my daughter, then don't leave without subscribing. Because ignoring stories like Shawntai's is how we let the next one happen. To the ones who won't subscribe, go to the comments and explain why. Why a young woman's death wasn't enough. Why another grieving mother, another shattered family, wasn't enough. Go ahead, tell us. Like this video if you believe silence kills. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's in this right now and hasn't told anyone. Let's talk in the comments. How do we stop this cycle? How do we spot the red flags earlier? Have you or someone you know lived through something like this? And tell us where you're watching from. Because Shawntai's story doesn't belong to just one place. It's happening everywhere, right now.